The mode of communication I want to talk with you about is called compassionate communication or nonviolent communication. Have any of you heard of that? You have? Good. One person? I usually get to be the person that introduces you to this awesome way of connecting with other people. And what I mentioned I love about it is it's based on values, like these values. And there's a list of them in your handout if you want to see the ones they came up with. But it's the values that drive our behavior. And I want to just introduce you to the model because I find it to be incredibly helpful for me in pretty much every dicey situation I've been in since I've been introduced to it. I mean, it's always helped me. So I've spent a little more time than you guys are going to get in the next 10 minutes on it. I've spent 5 years with it, but it's just unbelievably powerful. For me, understanding me, forget about even the other people, because when I understand me, I actually can show up in the world a lot more calm and connected than when I was kind of firing off and upset about things and then beating myself up by what I said. So let me introduce you to the model, and then you guys will know what I'm talking about instead of wondering what I'm talking about. So in this model, this was invented by a guy named Marshall Rosenberg, who's a psychologist who had a history of being a Jewish guy in a black neighborhood, got beat up a lot as a kid, and then he went into the psychological mental health profession and realized he didn't feel like he was really helping people a whole lot there. But out of all those experiences, he came up with this mode of connecting with other people, and he goes all over the world now, and there's people studying this in pretty much every developed country in the world, and many second and third world countries too. So it's really taken hold with a lot of people. And one of the things that I think people like about it, it's different than other communication, is the fact that it's based on values. That everybody, if you guys support, do you see that page there in your handout? It's a whole page. It says needs at the top.
Do you have more of those?
I have, yes, some there and there. So in his model, these needs are, every person on the planet is born wired for these needs. And he calls them needs instead of values because he also includes air, food, water. Like if you guys were starving, you would probably not be in this room, you'd be out foraging for food. That need would be higher, more important one to meet. And he says that from the minute we're born until we die, basically, we do one behavior after the other to meet a need. So no matter what the behavior looks like, the intention behind the behavior is to meet a need. So what needs are you guys meeting by being in this room? Being competent, learning some competency with your parenting, learning, so competency, learning. Support in knowing you're not alone, awesome. New strategies, yeah, I don't know what to call that, but let's just call it new tools on the parenting toolbox. Yeah. And it has to do with competency and support and stuff like that. And now what needs are you not getting met by you being here? Being connected with your kids? Exercise? Right? I mean, it's always a balance, right? So there's exercise, hanging out with your kids, maybe just enjoying some sunshine, a little peace. So, you know, in your body, these needs won over these needs. There's some people that were planning on coming here and these needs won. You know, at any given moment in time, the need that's the greater wins the prize, so to speak, and that's the behavior that comes out of you. So that's the model. And we have this thing called feelings that let us know how we're doing. If you're kind of finding yourself bored, then your needs for these aren't getting met right now. Or if you're sleepy, maybe your need for rest really was more important than you thought. When we're really wigged out about a need, if there's a big need not getting met in us, we sometimes do behavior that I say looks like this. I call this a behavior storm. You guys have done this a few times? I mean, maybe never until you had kids, but there's not a parent on the planet that didn't do this once they had kids. That I know of, anyway. And usually when we have a little behavior storm like this, it's directed at the person that, you know, was triggered us, so to speak. So person B over here, they have their own set of needs, feelings, behaviors, their own little system going. And when somebody comes at you with a storm like this, what's real likely that you're going to do? I mean, one likely thing that's probably happens a lot with kids, your kids, for instance. Shut down is one thing, and what's another thing? Go after you. So I say that this shutdown, this form of it is just as much a behavior storm as yelling. So going that way or this way, either way. And so we get into this fight here, right? It's not fun up here. And this is usually about, I am right and you are wrong. Both people. I'm right, you're wrong. And there's a concept of just, if you would just do it my way, everything would be fine. I don't know why you don't just take out the garbage when I ask you to, because everything would be fine. So there's a big should implied and a lot of judgment when we're up here. You should be doing something than what you're doing. And this person thinks you should be doing something different than what you're doing. And we do all kinds of things to make people do what we want. We blame and guilt them and coerce them and demand and bribe them, you know, all kinds of things to get people to do what we want, right? And what Marshall's saying, he's not saying, hey, it's okay if you storm me, I'm just going to pretend you didn't do that. He's not condoning this. He's just asking the question, what is going on down here? Because this is where the action is. What's the value underneath this storm? And I'll tell you a beautiful story to illustrate this. There was a dad whose baby was born with a cleft palate, and he was super mad. You guys know what that is? It's where the palate, hard palate of the mouth is not formed, and those babies have trouble eating and breathing, which are kind of important things to do when you're a baby. And this dad was just wigged out. He was just super mad. And you can imagine the neonatal intensive care nurses are quite skilled at dealing with angry parents. But they couldn't touch this guy. He just got more and more and more mad. And by the time the baby was 12 hours of age, he was so out of control that they were going to actually have the security come and handcuff him and take him away because he was disturbing the care of the whole unit. So they decided to send my partner that I teach nonviolent communication with in to see if she could do anything. And she kind of already tried to talk. She's a physician. She had already tried to talk to the guy. He shooed her out of the room. So she kind of had what we call an enemy image of this guy. Do you guys ever have that of your kids? They're just doing it to make me crazy. And she had a little bit of an attitude. So she walks in the room, but she didn't want the guy to be taken away. I mean, that would alienate this guy from the medical profession. And this kid is going to need help with the medical profession for several years, most likely. So she went in. The second she walked in the room, he starts screaming at her, "You're the worst doctor. These are the worst nurses. This is the worst hospital." Started yelling at her. She said something protective. I don't know if you know about how hospitals work, but doctors are, it's a hierarchical system. You know, in the amoeba world, it's very amoeba-ish. And the doctors are at the top. So sometimes as a doctor, you can just go, "Well, I'm just covering for your doctor," and you kind of stand up tall, and then they shush up for a while, and then they take it out on the nurses after you leave the room, kind of thing. But anyway, whatever she tried made the guy madder. So she noticed this guy who's like 6'3". She noticed the storm get even bigger with what she said. And she'd only just been introduced to nonviolent communication. She had just learned from Marshall a quote. And for some reason, in the middle of this guy screaming at her, she remembered this. The uglier the behavior, the bigger the unmet need. So for some reason, she remembered that. I would like you guys to, a very hot parenting tip for you would be to remember that next time your kids have a really ugly storm. uglier the behavior, the bigger the unmet need. So for some miracle of all, this is that. So that's tip number 1, if you can remember that. Tip number 2 in this model is that she paused. I mean, how often when we're in a fight like this do we just go and we say things we don't mean, and then we can't go to sleep that night because of what we said, and we have to grovel, and right? And so she said she got connected real quickly to her needs. She'd never met this guy before, so she didn't have a lot of baggage. So she remembered, gosh, you know, I really want to be effective here. I do not want this guy taken away. And she didn't know what was going on for him. But she goes, gosh, I wonder. And she just guessed with this model. She goes, are you feeling scared because you need your baby to be safe? She said 12 words. And this guy just went, this storm just disappeared in 1 second. Just completely went away, and he went, yes. So that's the power of this model of connecting somebody to their big unmet need. He was afraid his baby would die. And the reason we found out later, the reason is because he's from Romania, and in Romania they let malformed babies die, and he thought if he went to sleep his baby would die. And he hadn't been asleep for like 36 hours. He was becoming psychotic from sleep deprivation. So isn't that amazing? Now, with your own family members, I will tell you it's not usually so easy because there's a whole lot of history up here. It's harder for you to get connected to what you really want. You know, I think about the towel on the ground, you know, the wet towel on the wood floor. Would you know, I really want to be connected and respectful to my kids, so I say real nicely, would you mind picking up that towel because it's kind of ruining the floor, you know, whatever. Nothing happens. So I say it again, a little bit stronger, but still politely, and then, you know, the next thing I'm just screaming it, right? Kick up the damn towel, because my need to be heard all of a sudden just jumped up over all the others, and I needed to say something. So it's important for you to get connected to your own needs before you start thinking about what the other person needs. So I just gave you a 10-minute lesson in something like Spanish. This is a whole different way to think, and it's about connecting with the other person. I don't want you to give up judgment, or you will get hit by a car as soon as you go outside and try to cross the street. Judgment is a good thing when you're doing lots of things, but when you're trying to connect with another person, it can really get in the way.
So about the tower, what do you do?
So when in this model, I would wait till it's not the towel time, right? Because I can't be down here connected to myself and in any kind of peaceful state of mind when I'm triggered. So I'd wait till like a week or 2 later when I'm not triggered to talk about it. You know, when you leave the towel, I did this with my husband. You know, when you leave your clothes all over the floor, tell me about that, because, you know, I just learned this new tip that, you know, instead of picking them up later, you can just pick it up now, and then it's like, done, right? Well, I found out from him, I found this out a year ago. I've been married to him for 27 years. When he takes off his clothes, he doesn't think about them. And when he does think about them, he picks them up. Doesn't bother him at all. He doesn't think about it at all. So now when I see his clothes on the middle of the floor, I go, huh, he's not even thinking about it. Isn't that funny? And I like pick it up and I kind of throw it in an inconvenient place for him. But I do it with a different attitude than I used to, which was felt like I was picking up after him. So I want to ask my kids, you know, that towel's a problem for me, and I'm just wondering if we can talk about that, because it could really ruin the floor. And can we brainstorm about that when you're in the mood? And just get curious.